Almost 3 weeks after he vanished seemingly into thin air, police have pulled the pin on the latest outback search for Gus Lamont.
It's the ending no one wanted after what's been described as the biggest and most intensive operation of its kind. Over 11 days in total, more than 100 police, army personnel, volunteers and trackers used every resource available, covering a search area 100 times bigger than Adelaide's CBD. As the temperature rose, these men and women walked up to 25 kilometres a day, leaving no stone unturned.
Major crime detectives have returned to the country homestead where little Gus Lamont vanished 1 week ago. Police have called off the search for the 4-year-old, but investigations into his disappearance continue. South Australians are being asked to leave their porch lights on in support of Gus's family, many holding on to hope he may somehow find his way home.
Given the effluxion of time, if he's wandered off somewhere on the property, it's hard to see how a 4-year-old could survive in their own resources for this period of time.
A 4-year-old boy vanishes from his grandparents' remote property, and just a day earlier, a man driving erratically abandons his car nearby. Could these cases be linked, or is it all just a tragic twist of fate?
On September 27, 2025, at the isolated Oak Park Station sheep farm, 300 kilometers north of Adelaide in South Australia's unforgiving outback, 4-year-old Gus Lamont vanished without a trace. Last seen playing on a dirt pile at 5:00 p.m., the curly-haired boy in his minion shirt disappeared in just 30 minutes, leaving his family in panic. Massive searches covered 60,000 hectares with drones and soldiers, yet nothing. No footprints, no clues, no body. Was it a stranger's grab, family secrets, or the desert's deadly embrace? Join us as we unravel. This is the case of Gus Lamont. The disappearance of Gus Lamont. Augustus Gus Lamont is a 4-year-old boy born around 2021. He has curly blonde hair, brown eyes, stands about 100 cm tall, and has a slender build. Family members describe him as shy but adventurous, often eager to explore his surroundings. At the time of his disappearance, Gus was wearing a long-sleeved blue shirt featuring a minion character, gray pants, a gray hat, and boots. The incident occurred on Saturday, September 27, 2025, at the Oak Park Station sheep farm, located about 40 km south of Yunta and roughly 300 km from Adelaide. This remote desert area features flat terrain with limited hiding spots and is home to wild animals such as dingoes and feral pigs. Gus was last seen around 5:00 p.m. playing on a pile of red dirt outside the family home by his grandmother Josie. She noticed he was missing at 3 p.m. when she called him inside. The family conducted their own search for 3 hours, including 2 hours in the dark after sunset at 6:15 p.m., before contacting police around 8:30 p.m. During this time, Josie was inside watching Gus's younger brother Ronnie. Gus's mother Jess and another family member were about 10 km away tending to sheep. Gus's father Joshua Lamont does not live with the family due to disagreements with the grandparents but remains partnered with Jess. Joshua only learned of the disappearance later when police informed him. The farm spans approximately 150,000 acres or 60,000 hectares, with a modest 2-bedroom setup purchased in 2021. From the outset, the family has fully cooperated with authorities. We turn now to the initial search efforts from September 27 to October 7, 2025, which marked one of the largest operations in South Australian history, covering over 60,000 hectares. This massive undertaking involved hundreds of personnel, including police, state emergency service volunteers, and Australian Defence Force members. They deployed ground teams on foot and in vehicles, infrared drones for aerial surveillance, helicopters for broader coverage, sniffer dogs trained to detect scents, and specialized equipment for thermal imaging. Despite this extensive scale, the results were utterly fruitless. No credible traces emerged. Searchers found only one footprint about 500 debits from the home, but it was later ruled out as not belonging to Gus. The dogs picked up no scent trails, underscoring the baffling absence of any leads. By October 7, the active search was scaled back, shifting to a recovery phase under the assumption Gus may have perished. The case was handed to the Missing Persons Investigation section, highlighting the growing sense of helplessness as resources yielded nothing. The decision to pause stemmed from expert medical and survival advice. A 4-year-old could not endure more than a week in the harsh desert environment, with daytime highs reaching 36 degrees, scarce water sources, and chilly nights.
Given the effluxion of time, if he's wandered off somewhere on the property, it's hard to see how a 4-year-old could survive in their own resources for this period of time.
Without fresh evidence, continuing the full-scale effort became unsustainable, amplifying the frustration in a case where every tool and tactic failed to produce results. Then came the renewed search from October 14 to 5 under Taskforce Horizon, established on October 14 with over 80 ADF soldiers joining the fray. This phase expanded the radius to 5.5 km around the home, calculated based on a young child's potential movement range. Again, the operation relied on infrared drones, sniffer dogs, and ground patrols, building on the already monumental prior efforts. However, high temperatures forced an early halt on October 16, and the search wrapped up on October 17 with no new evidence uncovered. This second wave, despite its reinforced manpower and targeted approach, mirrored the initial phase's impotence, leaving investigators empty-handed once more. Throughout these searches, police received over 150 tips via Crime Stoppers, yet none provided substantial leads. Authorities also debunked online rumors and AI-generated fake images that harmed the family, adding to the operational challenges in a high-profile case. As of October 20, 2025, the investigation remains an open long-term missing persons case managed by SAPOL's Missing Persons Unit. No active searches are underway, but inquiries continue aimed at recovering Gus for his family. Recent efforts have produced no fresh clues, and the family is described as traumatized yet cooperative. SAPOL urges the public to share reliable information through Crime Stoppers at the 133,000 while discouraging the spread of unverified rumors. No official updates have surfaced since October 17, leaving the situation in a state of prolonged uncertainty and underscoring the profound futility that has defined this exhaustive yet unproductive pursuit. We note how the sheer magnitude of these operations, spanning vast deserts with cutting-edge technology and interagency collaboration, clashes starkly with the complete lack of breakthroughs. From the first days, when convoys of trucks traversed 40-km dirt roads from Yunta with just 60 residents, 2 gas stations, a pub, post office, and police station, the commitment was evident. Police divers scoured dams, indigenous trackers scanned the terrain, and daily briefings prepared families for grim possibilities. Yet, as weeks passed, the absence of even minor signs like clothing scraps or additional footprints deepened the despair. Experts like former Detective Gary Jubilin have suggested searching farther to rule out wildlife involvement, but even those ideas haven't panned out. The transition to recovery mode early on signaled fading hopes, based on scientific assessments of survival odds in such unforgiving outback conditions. This helplessness is palpable in statements from senior police, who expressed confidence in their thoroughness while admitting failure to locate Gus. The renewed Taskforce Horizon, with its military precision, represented a last-ditch escalation, only to end abruptly amid heat waves, reinforcing the pattern of high investment yielding zero returns. Public tips flooded in, but sifting through them amid misinformation, such as fabricated sightings 100 km away, drained resources further. Today, as the case lingers without momentum, it evokes comparisons to unsolved mysteries like the Beaumont Children, where decades passed without resolution. The family's stoic demeanor amid scrutiny adds another layer. But the core remains the investigation scale versus its barren outcomes, a true crime enigma that defies explanation. The red flags.
1 minute he was playing outside. The next, he was gone. Exactly what happened to preschooler Gus Lamont, no one knows. After 2 weeks without answers, speculation is building, and a former homicide detective has his own theory.
Not a clue. It's like he's just vaporised.
The search for Gus.
We've got a unique situation, such a rural, isolated area, when a 4-year-old goes missing.
How could he vanish without trace?
We have been poring over the peculiarities in this disappearance, starting with the complete absence of physical traces that has left everyone baffled. In a landscape as vast and featureless as the desert around the property, you'd expect some sign to turn up, footprints leading away, a dropped hat, or even scraps of clothing caught on scrub. But nothing credible has emerged. Searchers like his volunteer Jason O'Connell, who personally traversed over 200 kilometers during the operation, reported finding absolutely nothing. No scattered clothing, no signs of disturbance, and no further footprints after that initial 500 km away, which authorities quickly dismissed as unrelated. O'Connell, an 11-year veteran of such efforts, expressed outright surprise at the void, noting how the wide-open land should have revealed something if the boy had simply wandered off. Why in a landscape so unforgiving and exposed would every potential lead evaporate so thoroughly? Equally strange is the lack of any wildlife indicators that might point to a tragic outcome. The outback teems with predators like dingoes and feral pigs, animals known to scavenge or attack in remote areas. Yet search teams observed no birds of prey circling overhead, a common sign of remains in such terrains.
When you're looking at the location of the property, we know we've got dingoes out there, foxes, feral cats, wedge-tailed eagles and the likes. To me, it's starting to look like every indication of, as long as the police are happy with the family and their bona fides, that it may well be a situation where he may have been taken by an animal.
O'Connell and his partner Jen specifically highlighted this absence during media briefings, explaining how vultures or eagles typically gather if there's carrion, but the skies remained clear throughout their grueling patrols. This detail adds a layer of unease, as it suggests the boy isn't on the property in any form, or perhaps an incident was handled in a way that left no natural markers. Participants in the search, including indigenous trackers familiar with the land's rhythms, voiced their astonishment at the total blank slate, wondering aloud how a young child could vanish so cleanly without triggering the ecosystem's usual responses. Could this point to something more deliberate than a simple misadventure, where evidence was removed or never existed in the first place? While the numerous oddities surrounding the physical traces and environmental factors in this case can often be rationally explained away through expert analysis and the harsh realities of the outback terrain, we have noted that other elements stand out even more starkly, capturing widespread public attention and scrutiny. In child-related investigations, the individuals who typically face the earliest and most intense examination are always the family members themselves, those closest to the victim, with access, opportunity, and sometimes hidden motives. What's particularly striking here is how they don't come across as entirely blameless. Instead, they exhibit a series of unusual behaviors that deviate sharply from what we'd expect from any desperate family scrambling to locate a missing child, resembling far more closely the calculated actions of those attempting to conceal something deeper. We also find the family's refusal of volunteer help to be a standout oddity in a case crying out for more eyes on the ground. Led by grandmother Josie, the relatives barred access to the sprawling 150,000-acre property for anyone outside official channels, permitting only police and ADF teams while politely but firmly turning away community members eager to assist. In rural Australia, where missing persons hunts often rely on local knowledge and sheer numbers to calm vast areas, this stance is uncommon and raises eyebrows. Josie addressed this briefly in a statement to the Daily Mail, emphasizing the need for peace and quiet to process the event, but it left many questioning the logic. After all, volunteers could have expanded the grid without intruding on the homestead itself. Friends of the family defended the decision as a way to avoid chaos. Yet in comparable cases like the 2014 disappearance of William Tyrrell in New South Wales, community involvement proved crucial in early stages, even if it didn't resolve the mystery. Why prioritize seclusion over potential breakthroughs in such an immense, hard-to-cover terrain? The delayed notification to the father stands as another perplexing detail that hints at underlying family dynamics. Joshua Lamont, residing just 2 hours away in Blyth North, wasn't alerted by relatives during their initial 3-hour search. Instead, police informed him hours later, rousing him from sleep. Amid reports of tensions between Joshua and Josie, this omission seems particularly jarring. Why not loop in the boy's own father immediately, especially when time is critical in missing child scenarios? Joshua has since joined some search efforts, but the initial lag fueled speculation, with some online commentators drawing parallels to fractured family communications in other cases. For instance, in the Gannon-Stotch disappearance in Colorado in 2020, family alerts were swift despite internal conflicts, leading to quicker public mobilization. This delay here, whether intentional or oversight, creates a rift in the narrative that investigators had yet to fully address. Equally unusual was the late release of the boy's photo, which took 5 to 7 days to reach media and authorities for widespread dissemination. In standard protocols for missing children, images are shared almost instantly to spark tips and sightings, yet here the family hesitated, only providing one after significant prodding. This lag delayed the Amber Alert equivalent in Australia, potentially missing early leads from the public. Critics, including true crime podcasters, have pointed to this as a red flag, comparing it to cases where rapid photo sharing, like in the Sebastian Rogers search in Tennessee earlier this year, generated hundreds of calls. Why hold back such a vital tool when every hour counts, especially in a remote area where outsiders might have spotted something unusual? The family's media silence adds yet another layer of intrigue, with no on-camera interviews from public pleas from parents Jess and Joshua, or grandparents Josie and Shannon, even weeks into the ordeal. Unlike the Gannon-Stotch case, where even the stepmother gave statements amid scrutiny, or the Sebastian Rogers disappearance where relatives held daily vigils, this quietude is striking. Josie offered a brief comment about continuing their own searches, but the absence of emotional appeals or updates has left a vacuum filled by speculation. Family friends attribute it to grief, yet in true crime circles, such reticence often signals deeper issues, as seen in the Sullivan siblings case where parental silence later revealed complications. Is this silence a sign of stoicism, or does it mask something more? We can't ignore the proliferation of misinformation and AI-generated fakes that swamped the case early on. Rumors spread like wildfire online, including fabricated images of the boy with strangers, one of which was shared over 24,000 times, claiming a sighting 100 kilometers away. Police swiftly debunked these, but the damage was done, diverting investigative resources and causing emotional harm to the family. This level of digital interference is unusual for a rural disappearance, reminiscent of the Madeleine McCann case where hoaxes prolonged false hopes. Authorities issued warnings against such content, yet it persisted, with some users even creating deepfake videos. Why did this case attract such intense online fabrication so quickly, and how much did it hinder real progress? The inaccessibility for abduction scenarios further complicates the puzzle. The property lies 48 kilometers down a rugged dirt track from the barrier highway, a desolate route used mainly by truckers, making a stranger approach without detection improbable. No vehicle tracks or disturbances were found. Yet the total lack of evidence steers away from accidental wandering, leading experts like criminologist Yunta Mallet to propose third-party involvement or a cover-up in interviews with News.com. Mallet emphasized the remote settings role, suggesting a careful search inside structures might be warranted. This mirrors the JonBenet Ramsey case, where initial assumptions of intrusion gave way to internal suspicions due to logistical barriers. Then there's the unexplained timing and supervision gap, where the boy played alone outside for roughly 30 minutes in snake-infested outback just before dusk. This brief window, followed by the family's delayed police call after their own hunt, feels off-kilter. Why risk unsupervised play in such hazardous conditions, and why wait hours to escalate? Survival experts note that immediate alerts are key in the outback, where nightfall exacerbates dangers. The rapid shift to recovery mode after just a week, based on survival probabilities, strikes us as premature, especially with the later resumption under Taskforce Horizon. Former Detective Gary Jubelin drew parallels to William Terrell, critiquing how early de-escalation in that 2014 case stalled answers, leaving it unsolved today. Why pause and restart when resources were already mobilized, potentially missing critical windows? Finally, the coincidence with another missing person, Benjamin, reported absent the day prior with his blue Hyundai found abandoned nearby, adds an uncanny element. Though police dismissed links, the temporal and regional overlap, his car spotted driving erratically between Port Augusta and Glendambo, spurred unverified theories. Benjamin remains missing, and while authorities insist no connection, the proximity in an otherwise quiet area feels too serendipitous. In true crime analysis, such alignments often warrant deeper scrutiny, as in cases where unrelated vanishings are later intertwined. Why hasn't this angle received more official attention, or is it quietly being pursued? Shifting our lens from these puzzling anomalies that have left investigators and the public alike scratching their heads, we now delve into the suspicions swirling around the shocking prime suspects in this case, the family members. And the clear question is that who can hide the kid from the others of the family? The threats inside the house. Firstly, let's begin our examination of the family background by looking at their home base, Oak Park Station, a sprawling remote sheep farm they acquired in 2021. This property covers about 150,000 acres, or roughly 60,000 hectares, and features a simple two-bedroom homestead set in South Australia's rugged outback, positioned 40 kilometers south of the small town of Yunta and around 300 kilometers from Adelaide. The isolation of this location shapes much of their daily life, with the family relying on the land for their livelihood through sheep herding and other rural activities. Within this setup, Gus holds the role of the eldest child, a 4-year-old boy born around 2021, who primarily resided there with his mother and maternal grandparents. Family accounts portray him as a shy yet adventurous kid, with his curly blonde hair, brown eyes, and slender frame making him stand out during playtime. He often ventured outside under supervision, exploring the dirt piles and open spaces that defined his world on the farm. Gus shares his immediate family circle with a younger sibling, his 1-year-old brother Ronnie, sometimes referred to as Robbie in various reports, who was under the care of their grandmother Josie inside the house during a key moment. This sibling dynamic highlights a close-knit unit focused on the children, with Ronnie representing the next generation in a household centered around maternal relatives. Their mother, Jessica, often called Jess, Murray Lamont, serves as the biological parent anchoring the farm life. She lives there full-time with Gus, Ronnie, and her own parents, contributing to the operations like tending sheep, which sometimes takes her away from the homestead for short periods. Jess remains partnered with Gus's father, Joshua, though they maintain separate residences, an arrangement that underscores the blended yet divided nature of their family structure. Descriptions from those close to them paint Jess as integral to this tight family group, handling the day-to-day responsibilities that keep the property running smoothly amid the challenges of outback living. On the paternal side, or Josh, Lamont stands as Gus's biological father, but his involvement comes from a distance due to ongoing reported clashes with the maternal grandparent Josie. He resides in Blyth North, about 100 kilometers west of the farm, a 2-hour drive that separates him from daily family routines. Joshua was in the process of renovating a house there, with hopes of eventually bringing the family together under one roof, a plan that speaks to his aspirations for unity despite the current setup. Before settling into this role, he pursued a career as a country music singer, performing in South Australian pubs under the stage name Billy T, a background that adds a layer of public persona to his otherwise private life. Friends have shared that he viewed the farm environment as potentially unsafe for the children, a concern that reflects deeper worries about their well-being in such a remote spot. Since certain events, Joshua has actively participated in related efforts, appearing heartbroken and furious, as relayed by those around him, which illustrates his emotional investment despite the physical separation. Turning to the maternal grandparents, Josie Murray Lamont emerges as a central figure in the household. As a transgender individual who transitioned around 2015, Josie is Jess's biological father but identifies and is referred to as grandmother in family contexts. Living at the farm with wife Shannon, Tessie takes on significant caregiving duties, including watching over the grandchildren. Locals in the area hold Josie and the family in high regard, praising their resilience and community ties, though online spaces have unfortunately amplified scrutiny and unfounded rumors tied to Josie's gender identity, creating unnecessary stress. Josie's role as the family's limited media spokesperson further positions her as a protective gatekeeper, handling interactions with a measured approach that prioritizes privacy. Complementing Josie is Shannon Murray, Jess's biological mother and the other maternal grandmother, who shares the farm life with her spouse, daughter, and grandchildren. Shannon's own family history adds depth to their roots. On the land, her late father Vincent Pfeiffer, sometimes spelled Pfeiffer in records, was a famously tough survivor who endured 3 years in Japanese prisoner of war camps during World War II. After the war, Vincent took over the farm operations, managing it until his death in the early 2000s, instilling a legacy of endurance that the current generation carries forward. While some accounts suggest Shannon was involved in watching Gus at times, primary supervision often aligned with Josie, reflecting a shared responsibility in the household. This generational continuity underscores how the farm isn't just a home, but a heritage site, passed down through hardships and triumphs. Beyond the core group, the extended family and community perception provide additional context to their world. No details surface about paternal grandparents, keeping the focus on the maternal side rooted in Yunta, a tiny town with a population of around 60, boasting basics like 2 petrol stations, a pub, a post office, and a police station. Residents speak highly of the Murray family, viewing them as solid, hardworking folks integrated into the sparse rural fabric. Police descriptions label the family as stoic yet deeply traumatized, a characterization that aligns with their choice to urge volunteers to respect their privacy, opting instead for full cooperation with official authorities while limiting broader exposure. Amid challenges, they received a touching supportive letter from the mother of murdered teenager Phoebe Bishop, a gesture that connected their experience to other families enduring loss, offering a moment of solidarity in tough times. For the family-related direction, we got the various theories surrounding potential foul play from within the family, drawing from expert insights and public observations and public unusual behaviors and underlying tensions. Starting with insights from former homicide detective Gary Jubelin. Known for heading the William Terrell investigation, Jubelin has publicly suggested that authorities are likely scrutinizing some form of intervention in the disappearance, which could encompass human actions or wildlife encounters. He emphasizes how uncommon it is for a 4-year-old to vanish so completely, interpreting police references to other lines of inquiry as a clear sign they're exploring possibilities beyond mere misadventure. In an interview, Jubelin posed the direct question, has Gus disappeared through misadventure, or is there some form of intervention? This analysis stems from his extensive experience, where he notes that young children's cases often involve more than accidental wandering, prompting a need to probe deeper into those closest to the child for any inconsistencies or motives. Building on this, Jubelin draws to the unsolved 2014 William Terrell case in New South Wales, where an initial emphasis on the little boy lost scenario, assuming the child had simply strayed, delayed critical broader investigations into human factors. In that instance, the 3-year-old vanished from his foster grandmother's yard, and despite massive searches, no trace emerged, leading to years of stalled progress and ongoing inquests that revealed overlooked family dynamics and potential cover-ups. Jubelin praises the South Australia Police for adopting a concurrent approach here, running multiple lines of inquiry from day one, which he sees as a lesson learned to avoid repeating Terrell's investigative shortcomings. By implying early probing into human involvement, Jubelin's comments fuel speculation that family members' actions or inactions, such as supervision lapses or communication delays, could be under review, even if not overtly stated. We also consider the input from Aaron Stewart, a former policeman with hands-on experience in bush searches, who has advocated for a full reinvestigation of the property and re-interviewing everybody involved, extending timelines back a week to capture any overlooked details. Stewart's call doesn't name family members outright, but it inherently suggests checking for inconsistencies in statements or timelines from those on site, which could point to cover-ups or accidental harm concealed by relatives. His background in similar rural operations lends weight to this, as he argues that revisiting the scene with fresh eyes might reveal subtle signs of intervention that initial efforts missed, much like how re-examinations in other cases uncovered hidden family secrets. Criminologist Xantha Mallet adds another layer, proposing that the total lack of evidence, despite exhaustive searches, indicates third-party involvement or a deliberate cover-up. In her analysis for News.com, Mallet highlights the remote setting's role in making traces hard to erase naturally, recommending a meticulous search inside the house itself. While she stops short of accusing the family directly, this raises pointed questions about internal actions, such as whether relatives might have moved or hidden evidence to mask an accident or intentional act. Mallet's expertise in forensic criminology underscores how such voids often signal human interference close to home, drawing from patterns in cases where family members altered scenes to deflect suspicion. The core of the family-related direction is the web of conflicts among family members, and the potential motives that have fueled speculation in this case. Starting with the primary tension at its core, reports consistently highlight clashes between Father Joshua Lamont and maternal grandmother Josie Murray, who is transgender and Jess's biological father. These disagreements have been severe enough to force Joshua to live separately, a 2-hour drive from the family farm. Despite remaining legally partnered with Jess and sharing 2 young sons, Joshua's absence from daily life stems directly from this rift with Josie, creating a fractured household where maternal relatives hold sway over the children's primary environment. Friends close to Joshua have shared that he viewed these tensions as insurmountable barriers, often citing them as the reason he couldn't gap and move back in, even as he maintained emotional ties to his family. Joshua's deep-seated concerns about safety amplify this conflict, with a close friend revealing that he repeatedly called the remote farm unsafe or dangerous for raising young children like Gus and Ronnie. For more detail about the idea of Joshua Lamont, his concerns about the farm's safety for his young children run deep, rooted in a profound sense of dread that has only intensified since the events unfolded. He has repeatedly told friends and media that the outback environment at Oak Park Station is nothing short of a death trap for little ones like Gus and Ronnie, emphasizing with raw urgency that if something happens out there, no one can get to them in time, it's just too damn remote and unforgiving. The desert terrain itself terrifies him, a vast, flat expanse with no natural barriers, where a child could wander just 500 meters and vanish forever into the endless horizon, 48 kilometers from the nearest paved road and 3 hours from any real medical help, turning a simple game of hide and seek into a fatal mistake under scorching 36-degree days and freezing nights. Wildlife adds a layer of horror that Joshua can't shake, haunted by stories of dingoes snatching toddlers like in the infamous Azaria Chamberlain case, or venomous snakes striking in the red dirt piles where his boys played, feral pigs charging, eagles swooping, all thriving in this godforsaken isolation where screams go unheard and help never arrives fast enough. His personal clashes with Josie only sharpen this nightmare. He sees her as out of touch with the brutal realities of raising kids in such peril. Their heated arguments driving him away to Blythe North, where he's desperately renovating a safer home, convinced that Josie's oversight leaves the children exposed to risk she simply doesn't grasp. And now, with Gus gone after just 30 unsupervised minutes at dusk, Joshua's warnings have exploded into furious heartbreak. He knew it, he screamed it, and the total void of clues proves him catastrophically right, fueling his rage that this tragedy was entirely preventable in a place no 4-year-old should ever call home. These actions paint a picture of a father desperate to create a safer, more stable home away from the farm's perils, suggesting his motive was written protection and reconciliation. Yet, the ongoing clashes with Josie thwarted these plans, leaving Joshua in a commuter role, visiting when possible but excluded from full involvement, while fueling his frustration with the maternal side's control. Describing their relationship further reveals the commuter dynamic Jess and Joshua navigate as a couple raising Gus and Ronnie. They remain committed partners, sharing parenting duties across the distance, but cohabitation remains off the table due to the persistent clashes with Josie and Shannon. Jess resides full-time at the farm, immersed in the maternal household with her parents, handling sheep tending and childcare routines that keep the operation afloat. This setup positions her as the bridge between worlds, loyal to her family's heritage while maintaining ties to Joshua, yet it perpetuates the separation. Observers note how Jess's choice to stay put aligns with the maternal grandparents' preferences, potentially deepening Joshua's sense of alienation and motivating him to push harder for relocation. In conversations with locals, Joshua has voiced hopes that his renovations would finally tip the scales, allowing the boys a childhood free from outback dangers. But the unresolved conflicts kept that dream deferred. Josie's transition adds another layer to these family impacts. Occurring around 2015, shortly after the death of Shannon's father, Vincent Pfeffer, the WWI survivor who ran the farm until the early 2000s. Public records confirm Josie's name change that year, marking a pivotal shift in household dynamics just as Jess was entering adulthood. Tensions with Joshua are explicitly linked to this period, with speculation that his discomfort with the change contributed to the growing divide. Vincent's legacy as a tough, resilient figure who endured Japanese pug camps looms large, shaping the farm's unyielding ethos that Josie and Shannon uphold. Joshua's exclusion may stem from clashing values, his modern aspirations versus the traditional rural grit, creating a motive for Josie to maintain control over the grandchildren's upbringing, viewing Joshua as an outsider threat to family unity. So are those conflicts enough to form a motive for at least one family member to take the child away from the others? For Joshua Lamont, the father, a key drive appears rooted in his desire for family reunion and child safety, as evidenced by his ongoing renovation of a two-bedroom cottage in Blythe North, purchased around Gus's birth in March 2021. Friends recount how he poured resources into updates like bathroom work and even scouted local schools, aiming to create a stable environment away from perceived dangers. This motive suggests a push to resolve separations, potentially escalating if he viewed the maternal side as obstructive, tying into broader patterns where parental abductions, per FBI stats, 50% linked to custody disputes, stem from one parent's bid to protect children from the other's influence. Joshua's reported Furia-delayed notifications hints at a motive fueled by exclusion, where reclaiming control becomes paramount. Shifting to Josie Murray Lamont, the maternal grandmother and Jess's biological father who transitioned around 2015, motives might center on protecting family unity and shielding from external judgment. Following the death of Shannon's father, Vincent Pfeffer, a WWI survivor who endured Japanese pug camps and ran the farm until the early 2000s, Josie's role as caregiver and spokesperson reflects to uphold legacy and privacy. Online theories pose that she might conceal incidents to avoid scrutiny amplified by her gender identity, with rumors accusing cover-ups to preserve the household's image. Friends defend Josie as kind and gentle, but speculation draws from cases where caregivers hide accidents from negligence, like brief unsupervised moments, to evade blame or legal fallout. This protective instinct could motivate actions prioritizing internal resolution over transparency, especially if clashing with Joshua threaten the matriarchal structure. For Jess Murray Lamont, the mother, potential motives revolve around maintaining custody and stability within her parental home. As the bridge in a commuter relationship, with Joshua, Jess's full-time residence at the farm with Josie and Shannon suggests a loyalty to maternal roots, possibly driving her to safeguard rights amid disputes. If negligence, like short lapses in supervision, led to mishaps, a motive to pursue could emerge from fear of losing children or facing separation proceedings, aligning with patterns where parents in fractured unions prioritize control. Her limited media engagement reinforces this, as theories suggest avoidance stems from guarding family secrets to prevent escalation. Shannon Murray, the other maternal grandmother, might be motivated by supporting Josie and preserving generational bonds. As Vincent Pfeffer's daughter, she carries a legacy of endurance, potentially driving her to back cover-ups for household cohesion. Though less spotlighted, her role in childcare could motivate aiding concealment if accidents occurred, prioritizing family solidarity over external involvement. Overall motives across the unit often circle back to protection, Joshua seeking relocation for safety, Josie and Shannon upholding privacy and legacy, Jess balancing loyalties. Speculation ties these to FBI-noted parental disputes, where 50% involve abductions or harm from custody fears, though friends decry such theories as cruel. Overall, it's clear that these motives are quite familiar across many families, perhaps even not overly significant in isolation, yet when embedded in a severely divided household and a living environment riddled with natural perils, we fear that virtually any scenario could unfold. Benjamin and the Stranger Theories. Turning to the theory that an outsider orchestrated the disappearance, the core idea revolves around 30 involvement, where a stranger approaches the remote property, abducts the child, or stages an accident and conceals any traces. Criminologist Xantha Mollett has been vocal on this front, arguing that the complete absence of physical evidence, despite exhaustive searches, strongly points to deliberate third-party action or a sophisticated cover-up. She emphasizes how the flat, Open terrain should have preserved footprints, clothing scraps, or disturbance signs if it were a simple wandering case, yet nothing turned up, leading her to recommend a thorough, forensic-level search inside the homestead itself. Mallett draws from her expertise in unsolved child vanishings, noting patterns where outsiders exploit isolation to strike and vanish without a trail. According to FBI statistics, stranger abductions account for just 24% of all kidnappings, dropping to a mere 2% of reports received via hotlines, making this scenario statistically rare but not impossible, especially in sparsely populated outback regions where opportunistic predators might roam unchecked. The logistics of access add intrigue. The barrier highway lies 48 kilometers away down a rugged dirt track, primarily used by long-haul truckers, meaning a vehicle could theoretically pull off, navigate the dust, and reach the property without much notice. However, the pancake flat landscape offers zero cover, making tire tracks or approach signs glaringly obvious, yet none were detected by ground teams or drones, raising questions about how clean such an operation would need to be. Diving deeper into specific outsider scenarios, the most compelling and controversial centers on a man known only as Benjamin, a missing person reported absent on September 26, 2025, just one day before the child's vanishing. Eyewitnesses spotted his blue Hyundai i30 weaving erratically along the stretch between Port Augusta and Glendambo, a desolate highway corridor not far from the property. Public reports flooded in about the suspicious driving, painting a picture of distress or impairment, but Benjamin himself disappeared without a trace. Then, during the massive search operation, the same teams combing the outback stumbled upon his abandoned vehicle in Wirramina, roughly a few hundred kilometers from the farm, a chilling overlap that sent online forums into overdrive. The car sat empty, keys gone, no signs of struggle or belongings, as if he'd simply stepped away into the void. Theories exploded. Perhaps Benjamin, in a disoriented state, veered off the highway, spotted the isolated homestead, snatched the boy playing outside, hid him in the vast scrub, and ditched his ride to evade pursuit. The temporal proximity, one day apart, and regional coincidence fueled speculation that he bundled the child into the trunk during that 30-minute unsupervised window, driving off into the night. True crime podcasters, like those on Chaos Chronicles, dissected maps, noting how Wirramina's location aligns with a quick escape route, and called for public tips on sightings of the man or vehicle. Benjamin remains at large, his full identity withheld by police pending family consent. Adding to the mystery, was he a drifter with a dark intent, or just another outback casualty? South Australia police swiftly dismissed any connection, classifying the cases as unrelated missing persons incidents, but skeptics point to the eerie timing as too fortuitous to ignore, especially since the searchers literally crossed paths with his car while hunting for the boy. Another plausible outsider angle involves a trucker or passerby on the barrier highway leveraging the 48 kilometers dirt access for a swift grab and go. Long-haul drivers ply this 965 kilometers desolate stretch daily, hauling freight between states with few stops, and theorists imagine one pulling over in a moment of impulse, spotting the child from afar, and scooping him up before anyone noticed. The theory posits the abductor used the vehicle's height and speed to cover ground quickly, perhaps even transferring to another ride later to throw off trackers. Online sleuths map potential timelines. A truck could reach the property in under an hour from the highway, linger just long enough during the 5:00 p.m. playtime, and vanish by dusk at 6:15 p.m. Fueling this is the sheer volume of transient traffic, dozens of rigs daily, offering anonymity in a place with zero CCTV. However, hard evidence evaporates here. No unfamiliar tire marks scarred the dirt tracks. No witnesses from Yunta's tiny population recalled odd vehicles and infrared drones without detecting anomalies. Search coordinator Jason O'Connell told media he saw no signs of motorized intrusion, underscoring how the flat visibility should have betrayed any outsider's path. Still, proponents argue a skilled operator could sweep traces or time it during the family's 3-hour self-search delay, when official eyes weren't yet on the scene. Wildlife intervention emerges as a non-human outsider theory, positing that outback predator struck and carried off remains, leaving the eerie void. Dingoes, notorious for pack attacks in remote areas, top the list. Packs have killed children before, like the 1980 Azaria Chamberlain case immortalized in A Cry in the Dark. Theorists envision a dingo lunging during the unsupervised Thurnets, dragging the 100 centimeters boy into scrub where scavengers dispersed evidence. Yet, searchers found zero blood, fur, or struggle marks, and experts ruled Gus too large at 4 years old for easy transport without resistance signs. Feral pigs, aggressive omnivores roaming the region, could have charged and mauled, but again, no gore or tracks appeared despite SC's teams scouring dams and burrows. Wedge-tailed eagles, Australia's largest birds of prey with 2.5 m wingspans, occasionally snatch toddlers, but Gus's size and weight make this improbable. Involved infants under 10 kg. Most telling, the total absence of circling birds of prey, which O'Connell and his partner Jen flagged as bizarre. Vultures and eagles swarm carrion in open country, yet skies stayed clear over 60,000 hectares, suggesting no body lingered to attract them. Indigenous trackers, steeped in bush lore, echoed this, noting how the ecosystem's silence screamed unnatural. Police divers checked every waterhole for submerged attacks, but nada. Gary Jubilin, the ex-detective, lumped wildlife into his intervention, bucket alongside humans, praising concurrent probes but noting the lack of natural markers defies typical predator patterns. For the supportive evidence of this direction, we have gathered substantial details on the evidence that could bolster theories of outsider involvement, starting with the stark lack of natural traces that might otherwise point to a simple wandering scenario, the complete absence of footprints, beyond one initial find 500 knot away that was quickly ruled out, no clothing scraps, no scent trails detectable by highly trained sniffer dogs, and no signs of struggle or random movement all suggest the possibility of deliberate removal by an external party. Search crews, including SS volunteer Jason O'Connell, who personally covered over first 200 kilometers, expressed bafflement at this void, noting how the flat, featureless landscape should have preserved some evidence if the child had merely strayed far. O'Connell and his partner Jen highlighted in media interviews how even basic indicators like disturbed dirt or dropped items were non-existent, leading them to conclude nothing remained on the property. This pattern aligns with cases where outsiders use vehicles to swiftly transport victims, erasing pedestrian trails that dogs or trackers would otherwise follow. Former Detective Gary Jubilin, drawing from his experience on similar high-profile inquiries, described this as potential intervention, explicitly questioning whether human hands, possibly from beyond the immediate circle, played a role in the clean getaway. Jubilin's analysis in News.com interviews emphasizes how rare it is for young children to vanish so tracelessly without external aid, praising the concurrent lines of inquiry that might uncover vehicular involvement or staged concealment. Adding weight are the 150 tips received through Crime Stoppers, some of which described sightings of unfamiliar individuals or vehicles in the broader region around the time frame. While most leads proved fruitless, a handful recounted suspicious strangers, bearded men or lone drivers, lingering near outback roads, prompting brief follow-ups that, though unresolved, keep the outsider angle alive. Aaron Stewart, a former policeman with bush search expertise, advocated in public statements for re-interviewing everybody involved, extending this to potential transients or passersby whose timelines might intersect with the 30-minute window. Stewart's call, shared in media like the Adelaide Advertiser, implies inconsistencies could reveal an outsider's brief intrusion, perhaps exploiting the isolation for a quick strike. The terrain itself supports feasibility, while 48 kilometers of rugged dirt separates the site from the barrier highway. Off-road capable vehicles like 4x4s or trucks could navigate it undetected in low traffic, especially near dusk when visibility drops. Drone footage and ground patrols scanned for tire marks or debris, but theorists argue a savvy predator might have backtracked or used natural cover like dry creek beds to mask their path, drawing from real-world examples where abductors in rural settings employ such tactics to evade thermal imaging. Transitioning to comparisons with similar cases sharpens the lens on outsider theories, beginning with the Beaumont Children disappearance on January 26, 1966, a haunting Australia Day mystery that unfolded at Glenelg Beach in Adelaide. 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Arna, and 4-year-old Grantmont set off from their suburban home for a day at the seaside, catching a bus as their mother watched from the doorstep. They played amid crowds, chatting with a tall, thin man in his 30s described as athletic with a blue swimsuit and pale skin, who joined their games and bought them treats from a nearby shop, details pieced from witness sketches that became iconic in the investigation. By afternoon, the siblings vanished without a scream or sign, leaving their towels and belongings behind on the sand. Police launched one of the largest manhunts in Australian history, draining lakes, searching sewers, and interviewing thousands, but no traces emerged, no footprints leading away, no abandoned clothes, no bodies in the dunes. The open beach, much like flat outback expanses, offered little cover, yet the children evaporated as if swallowed by the crowd. Suspects emerged over years: a local businessman with a shady past, a cult-like group called The Family, and even international links to child trafficking rings. Harry Phipps, a wealthy factory owner, became a prime focus posthumously. Witnesses claimed he resembled the beachman, and digs at his Castilloy factory in 2013 and 2018 uncovered animal bones but no human remains, despite anomalies like disturbed soil detected by ground-penetrating radar. Theories posited the man lured them to a vehicle park nearby, perhaps with promises of more treats, then drove off into suburbia. Nearly 60 years on, the case remains unsolved, with a $100 million reward still active, and annual vigils keep hope alive. Parallels here abound. Both involve young children vanishing from seemingly safe, open areas without a single clue, defying massive searches. The Beaumont's beach crowd mirrors the outback's isolation and vulnerability. Strangers can blend or exploit emptiness. Jubilant often references Beaumont as a cautionary tale, where initial lost child. Assumptions delayed outsider probes, much like calls for concurrent lines in modern cases to catch vehicular abductions early. Mallett's cover-up angle echoes Beaumont digs, where hidden sites yielded nothing, suggesting polished outsider operations that leave voids echoing across generations. Another striking parallel draws from the Madeleine McCann case on May 3, 2007, when the 3-year-old British girl disappeared from Ali's holiday apartment in Praia da Luz, Portugal, while her parents dined at a tapas restaurant just 50 meters away with friends. Kate and Jerry McCann, both doctors, had left Madeleine and her twin siblings asleep, checking every 30 minutes, a routine shattered when catered at 10 p.m. to find the bed empty, shutters jimmied open, and window ajar. No fingerprints, no forced entry signs beyond the window. No cries heard by neighbors, the scene screamed precision. Portuguese police bungled early steps, delaying border alerts and contaminating the room, while theories swirled a burglar panicked and took her, or a pedophile ring targeted the resort known for lax security. Suspects included Robert Murat, a local expat cleared after scrutiny, and Christian Bruckner, now prime suspect since 2020. German prosecutors claim evidence like his camper van near the site and phone pings placing him there, though no charges yet. The McCanns endured media frenzy, briefly named Arguido amid claims they staged an accident and hid the body, but were cleared in 2008. Operations the UK Met's 13 million probe since 2011 unearthed leads like efforts of suspicious men and digs in scrubland, but Madeleine remains missing, presumed alive by her parents who mark her birthday yearly. Global awareness surged via Netflix's The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, detailing parental anguish and investigative flaws. Comparisons to outsider theories here are vivid. Both cases feature total trace absence in monitored spots, the apartment's window like an unguarded play area, pointing to swift professional grabs. FBI rarity stats apply, with McCann's 24% stranger odds amplified by tourist anonymity, akin to highway transients. Jubilant's intervention echoes McCann's early dismissal of abduction, delaying global alerts, while Mallett's cover-up mirrors Bruludged van disposal of evidence. Stewart's re-interview call parallels McCann inquests, revisiting timelines for overlooked outsiders. Both sparked tips floods, McCann's 40,000 leads like the 150 here, yet yielded nada, underscoring how outsiders exploit brief windows in SAF settings. McCann's media storm parallels online rumors, diverting focus from real probes. These evidences and parallels paint a compelling, if elusive, picture of outsider roles, where statistical improbability meets logistical feasibility in remote voids. The lack of avian activity, as O'Connell detailed in briefings, isn't just odd, it's a forensic red flag, as eagles and vultures flock to carrion within hours, yet their absence implies rapid removal, perhaps bagged and driven away. Jubilant's Terrell experience informs this, where no wildlife signs shift focus to humans, urging similar pivots. Mallett's house search recommendation extends to outsider entry points, windows, doors, scarred for fibers or DNA that drones missed. Crime Stoppers logs detail shadowy figures, a trucker pausing oddly 50 kilometers east, a camper van spotted near Yunta days prior, unverified but echoing McCann's van leads. Beaumont's Beachman sketch lives on, inspiring e-fits here for highway strangers, while McCann's Operation Grange models multi-agency hunts that could apply, integrating ADF with interstate checks. The 2% hotline stat belies real risks in low population zones, where 60-resident Yunta offers scant eyes. Stewart's week-back timeline could capture drifter movements via fuel receipts or pub sightings, much like McCann phone pings nailed Bruckner. Beaumont's cult theories parallel trafficking rings, with Adelaide's proximity raising cross-state abduction fears. McCann's parental checks mirror supervision gaps, where outsiders' time strikes perfectly. Ultimately, these threads, evidential voids, expert nudges, parallel pitfalls, strengthen outsider viability, urging relentless pursuit of fleeting leads in endless expanses. Gus was found. For the survival odds for the 4-year-old in such harsh conditions, specialists consulted by South Australia Police, including medical and wilderness experts, have determined that a child of this age could not endure more than 1 to 2 days without access to water, food, or shelter in the Australian desert. Daytime temperatures soaring to 36 degrees accelerate dehydration at an alarming rate, potentially cause a loss of up to 10% body weight in hours through sweat and evaporation alone, leading to organ failure if not addressed. Nighttime drops below 10 degrees pose an equal threat of hypothermia, especially with minimal clothing like a thin minion shirt, gray pants and boots offering scant insulation against the chill. These factors compound rapidly without hydration, a young body shuts down, and the lack of protective gear exacerbates exposure. As of the 23-day mark since September 27, 2025, the survival rate plummets to near zero per the medical review that prompted the shift to recovery mode on October 7, 2025. This isn't speculative, it's grounded in physiological realities, where even hardy adults struggle in similar environs, let alone a slender, shy yet adventurous boy unaccustomed to prolonged self-reliance. Supporting this grim outlook are broader statistical insights from studies on child disappearances in Australia, such as those compiled by the Australian Institute of Criminology. Their data shows survival rates dipping below 10% after 72 hours in outback settings, primarily due to dehydration and exhaustion overtaking small frames ill-equipped for foraging or signaling help. Globally, comparisons from FBI and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reports reveal that 95% of lost children in desert or forested areas succumb, if not located within 3 days, with factors like age-amplifying vulnerability. 4-year-olds lack the cognitive or physical tools to seek water sources or build shelter. In this instance, the absence of any new traces following the Taskforce Horizon operation from October 14 to 17, 2025, reinforces the assessment no indications of sustained life, such as discovered water caches, distant footprints, or distress signals, have emerged. Police have publicly stated no expectation of finding the child alive, pivoting efforts toward body recovery, with no sighting reports or survival evidence surfacing in the interim. This aligns with patterns in similar terrains, where rapid environmental degradation, scorching sun by day, freezing winds by night, erodes chances hourly. Shifting to the prospects of locating the child, the odds of recovering him hover at a medium-low range of 30 to 40%, informed by the unprecedented scale of searches covering 60,000 hectares with drones, Australian Defence Force personnel, sniffer dogs, infrared tech, all yielding nothing substantial. If misadventure like wandering or an accident occurred, decomposition accelerates due to scavenging wildlife such as dingoes and feral pigs, which can scatter remains across vast distances, complicating detection. Notably, the lack of circling birds of prey, typically a giveaway for carrion, suggests no exposed body lingers on the surface, possibly due to burial under sand drifts or full consumption by animals. Police continue long-term inquiries, but after 23 days as weather events like rain or high winds erase subtle clues, washing away potential DNA or shifting soil layers, historical precedents in Australian outback cases show that bodies are found in about 35% of extended searches, when initial months later during unrelated activities like mustering or aerial surveys. The chance of finding the child alive remains exceedingly low, under 5%, given the zero survival baseline after such duration. Even in abduction scenarios, relocation far beyond the search radius, provide the barrier highway, diminishes local recovery hopes, as the child could be transported interstate or further. The 150 tips submitted to Crime Stoppers have yet to produce viable leads, though emerging AI tools could analyze drone footage or sighting patterns for overlooked anomalies, potentially boosting odds marginally. Influencing factors include the search cessation on October 17, 2025, without breakthroughs, leaving the case open but inactive in the field, much like the William Terrell disappearance in 2014, where no remains surfaced after 11 years despite similar exhaustive hunts. As of October 20, 2025, no progress reports have altered this trajectory, with emphasis firmly on recovery to provide closure for the family, acknowledging the diminishing window as environmental erasure continues. Coming to a question more directly related to the current investigation and search of the two directions we have now, which would be the more positive direction for Gus Lamont. On one side, the outsider theory posits a stranger or external force stepping in, perhaps through abduction or opportunistic intervention, which opens a broader canvas of scenarios ranging from calculated kidnappings to random encounters gone wrong. This contrasts sharply with the family foul play hypothesis, where internal dynamics lead to harm or concealment, often tied to unresolved tensions or accidental escalations that spiral into cover-ups. The outsider angle allows for the child to be beyond the immediate area, potentially alive and under someone's care, whereas family involvement typically suggests a more contained incident, with outcomes leaning toward irreversible loss due to proximity and emotional stakes. In exploring these, we see how the outsider path induces variables like trafficking networks or drifters, expanding the search radius to interstate or even international levels, while the family theory narrows focus to the household, implying deliberate actions to obscure truth from authorities. This difference in scope affects investigative approaches. Outsiders demand global alerts and tip lines scanning for sightings in distant towns, while family scenarios prompt re-interviews and forensic digs closer to home, each carrying distinct emotional weights for those left behind. Delving deeper into the contrasts, the outsider theory often evokes images of quick, clean operations by unknowns exploiting isolation, leading to prolonged uncertainty, but with glimmers of hope through unresolved leads. Whereas family foul play brings a heavier shadow of betrayal, where trust fractures and motives like protection or panic drive decisions that seal fates early. For instance, in outsider cases, The narrative can shift to survival stories if the perpetrator's trail resurfaces years later, fostering campaigns that keep public interest alive. Conversely, family theories tend to erode relationships, with accusations poisoning bonds and investigations turning inward, sometimes resulting in legal battles that offer closure only through confessions or evidence unearthed from within. The psychological toll diverges. Two outsiders represent random cruelty, allowing families to unite against an external enemy, while internal suspicions breed division, pitting relatives against each other in a web of doubt and defense. Operationally, outsider probes leverage technology like AI for pattern recognition across borders, scanning for matches in databases or social media, whereas family-focused inquiries rely on polygraphs, timelines, and psychological profiles to crack alibis, each method carrying risks of false positives that prolong agony. This bifurcation extent deception outsiders galvanize community support and media frenzy for widespread searches, but family theories invite scrutiny and stigma, turning sympathy into suspicion and isolating those involved. When assessing which theory holds the more positive outlook for the child, the outsider hypothesis emerges as the brighter path, primarily because it preserves the possibility of life and eventual recovery, unlike the often fatal implications of family foul play. In outsider scenarios, the child could be transported to a new environment, perhaps raised under a different identity or held for ransom, opening doors to reunions through breakthroughs like DNA matches or whistleblower tips decades later. This contrasts with family involvement, where motives rooted in conflict or accident frequently lead to outcomes that eliminate survival chances, as concealment prioritizes self-preservation over the child's well-being. The positivity in the outsider view lies in its allowance for hope. Global networks and advancing tech could one day pinpoint a living individual, transforming tragedy into triumph, while family theories typically culminate in grim discoveries or perpetual unknowns, tainted by betrayal. Experts we've consulted highlight how outsider cases, though rare, benefit from evolving tools like facial recognition aging software, keeping files active with fresh leads, whereas family cases often stall in legal quagmires, with closure hanging on internal breakdowns. Ultimately, the outsider framework of resilience, where the child might one day reemerge unscathed, fostering optimism amid despair, in stark opposition to the darker, more finite resolutions suggested by internal strife. To illustrate these contrasts further, consider how outsider theories encourage expansive, collaborative efforts that unite communities and authorities in a shared quest, often leading to policy changes like enhanced alert systems, while family hypotheses breed isolation, with probes dissecting personal histories and eroding privacy. The emotional arc differs. Pro-founders allow for fantasies of hidden lives and happy endings, buoyed by stories of long-lost children resurfacing, whereas family involvement invokes horror at domestic dangers, with motives like jealousy or fear painting a picture of inevitable harm. In terms of long-term impact, outsider cases can inspire vigilance and prevention campaigns, turning pain into proactive measures, but family theories risk stigmatizing entire lineages, perpetuating cycles of distrust that hinder healing. This duality underscores why the outsider lens feels more hopeful. It sustains the flame of possibility, where each new tip or tech advance revives chances, against the suffocating finality of internal betrayal. The critics. At the current juncture, with the clock ticking past 3 weeks since the disappearance, discussions surrounding the case have edified across various online forums and discussion groups. The focus has shifted sharply toward theories of foul play, particularly after the recent halt in active searches without any breakthroughs, breeding widespread frustration over the stalled progress. Media pieces from the past week have zeroed in on what they term sinister fears and unrevealed aspects of family routines, igniting fresh waves of conjecture that question every detail shared so far. Authorities have pushed back with repeated advisories against baseless gossip, pointing out how fabricated visuals circulated widely have muddled their work, forcing them to allocate time to debunking rather than advancing leads. The community sentiment leans heavily one way, with rough estimates from post-analysis showing 70 to 80% favoring suspicions of internal foul play, often centered on ideas of a deliberate cover-up or oversight by those closest. Only a smaller fraction, around 20 to 30%, clings to actions like accidental wandering or encounters with the harsh surroundings, emphasizing the inherent risks of such isolated settings. This divide grew sharper following mid-October revelations in reports about timelines and household decisions, where informal surveys and discussion groups revealed about 65% convinced of some form of inside orchestration, reflecting a collective tilt toward skepticism of official narratives. Criticisms have zeroed in predominantly on the family unit, with sharp barbs aimed at the grandmother for blocking outside assistance in searches, holding back images for several days, maintaining radio silence in public appeals, and failing to alert the father right away. The mother draws fire for perceived lapses in oversight and choices in living setups, while the father faces lighter but persistent accusations of perhaps holding back knowledge. The group as a whole gets branded as evasive due to their emphasis on seclusion and composed exterior, with anonymous voices ramping up attacks on the grandmother's personal background as some sort of warning sign. Even law enforcement catches stray complaints for wrapping up operations too soon and overlooking certain angles, though the bulk of the eye lands squarely on relatives perceived as uncooperative. These swirling opinions carry real weight, inflicting further emotional strain on a family already portrayed as deeply shaken yet resolute, pushing them deeper into withdrawal. The flood of unverified claims siphons off investigative energy, as officials must chase down and dismantle falsehoods like doctored pictures or invented sightings that lead nowhere. This noise risks scaring off genuine informants who might hesitate in a poisonous atmosphere, while pleas from acquaintances to halt the cruel narratives go unheeded, prolonging the hurt without yielding useful insights. In the end, the pressure mounts without propelling the inquiry forward, as raw emotions overshadow measured facts. To capture the raw pulse of these exchanges, one voice remarked, "Okay, we are getting down to the meaty part of the mystery now, a few weeks into the disappearance." This grandparent also declined to help in the search. "This is going to be a very ugly story, I fear." Another shared, "I'd heard about the case, yeah, but I hadn't heard this detail. The version I heard was that Gus' grandmother was looking after him. And the photo they released, I did wonder. The kid doesn't actually look happy in it. You'd think they'd have a better picture than that." A third noted, "Adelaide's major crime depth took over the Gus Lamont case, as there's absolutely no evidence that he ever walked away on that property. The sniffer dogs didn't even find his scent." Yet another commented, "The Tran Granny is definitely suspicious AF." Not quite correct to say that only police were allowed to search for Gus though. For the first 10 days or so there were volunteers, including talented bush trackers, out there searching. It is only now they are refusing help. And finally, one pointed to the hidden detail about Gus Lamont's family life that makes this tragedy even harder to bear. Linking to coverage that stirred more doubt, this undercurrent of judgment shows no signs of easing, as each new tidbit or lack thereof reignites the cycle, with voices demanding transparency while simultaneously spreading shadows that obscure the path to truth. The ripple effects touch every corner, from strained relations to diverted focus, all while the core questions linger unanswered in the public eye.